welcome back to Zeeburg, where today we're implementing some of your awesome feedback in Oldtown while continuing the rapid expansion of the city's industrial base and historic neighborhoods. We also finally do a bit of heavy detailing. Let's get started. Well, aren't we off to a fantastic start here in Zeeburg? A sports bike has crashed into a small city car. Now, for whatever reason, Mr. Christopher Saunders insists on staying on his bike, even post-crash, and yeah, just despawned, I guess. Look at the amount of people just taking pictures. That is disgusting. TikTok culture. I am actually trying to shoot an intro here, but yeah, we've got another crash, and yeah, I guess I'm part of the TikTok culture as well, because I'm continuously zooming in. Oh, this one looks pretty bad. Oh my, Gabriella, are you okay? Happy but injured, okay? Anyways, we're back here in Zeeburg for the very first time following the Bridges and Ports DLC and patch. And you can probably tell that I've let the simulation run for a month or two because the patch has exploded traffic throughout the city. Oh well, we are also seeing quite a few service coverage issues. We don't have active garbage management within city limits, and we don't have any deaf care either. We are relying on outside connections, and that works all right if you have actual flow in your traffic and outside service vehicles can attend to your city, but it's not gonna work anymore. So we definitely need to get those services sorted out, but we're actually going to start with something else entirely by making some quick but quite impactful improvements to Oldtown. Now, at the risk of sounding like your least favorite colleague on LinkedIn, quick and impactful is my way of saying that we are still not going to spend too much time detailing up any specific part of the city because we're still focusing on the big picture. Regardless, I did ask for feedback throughout Oldtown on the first episode, and it's time to implement some of that. So why not start with the most recent vote, which was based on a cool suggestion to add a historical building on Lot 1 facing the old college. I was quite foolish to believe I had set up an actual compelling vote, because while the French-themed building does have a slightly different look than much of the rest of Oldtown, it would allow for more greenery and a bit of a park feeling here. Quickly though, the vote was actually claimed by the Federal Republic of Germany, and so it was a landslide. I do suspect the main reason was that red roof tiles are just nice, so we're gonna vote for that. Which is absolutely fine by me. So we're just gonna clean up the lot here and get this building placed. The building in question is actually just a static, non-functional, ploppable version of the Deutsches Police headquarters, and I'll be honest, it is a pretty nice fit. It's gonna require a bit of anarchy and no snapping to get it probably fit in here, but there's even space for the path we already have. I did consider a double version just for a bit more symmetry, since it technically doesn't really face the college currently, but the whole thing just turns too bulky. It is a pretty tight space, so I think we're just gonna keep it here. One thing though is we are actually going to make it functional, because the suggestion does highlight the interesting dichotomy of having this high science building right next to the cathedral. So, since we don't have any university-level educational facilities just yet, let's try to turn this into the first one. All made possible by the incredibly flexible modular zoning and service blocks. So we're going to grab this education service block and just get it placed within inside the building perimeter, probably on the front here. And then carefully selecting this little modular service block, we'll be able to add the university facility upgrade with 100 student capacity, which isn't a whole lot, but it does allow us to scale this just the way we like it. Because we can place these pretty freely, and I'm pretty certain we can add several. So let's just add 200 student capacity to this specific facility. We're going to add 2 university interest modifiers, each of which will provide a 10% interest in university education citywide. So that is pretty powerful, and with Anarchy we can just stack these on top of some of the existing submodules we've added. And then we need to add some workplaces as well. If I remember correctly, these add about 10 workplaces for each of these we place. So I think maybe 40 staff for 200 students isn't too outrageous. And we can add these wherever we want. So yeah, I'm just gonna stack these as well. 2 on either side right here. Importantly, we're not going to see any influx of students or these employees before we make sure we have a proper road connection. It should work with an invisible connection as well, but I'm just going to play it safe and add a 1-lane pedestrian road that is going to move very close to the main building here. Then for good measure, let's just reduce the complexity of some of all the new generated crossings. A really cool thing here, now that it's functional by being connected to the road layout and completely occupied with students as well as employees, is that we actually have to pay for the wages. So this isn't like a super gamifying solution where you can just offer cheap high-level education. With that said, let's just add 1 additional university facility block, because I think 300 students is probably just okay. I also assume I have to place some of these pedestrian gates to allow for access, but I'm not really sure how it actually works. Either way, we are once again just going to stack these on top of the existing blocks. Hopefully that doesn't cause any issues down the line, but we'll find out. And then finally, we're gonna grab Move It to select the main block here and just move that slightly into the actual prop so that it's not visible. And this should now work perfectly fine. If you're a subscriber, you know that we like to name things for immersion. So we're going to name the prop building as well as the actual service blocks, of course, to the Maria Kunitz Royal School of Astronomy, named after one of the most notable female astronomers of the early modern era. I am directly quoting Wikipedia with no shame here, but I think it's a decent fit. Another really cool suggestion was to fully pedestrianize the Avenue of Enlightenment, which is basically the Old Town ring road. I am adding a slightly annoying compromise to this plan though, because I am going to keep this road stretch in between the 2 bridges intact. I think it would be fairly realistic for the city to also prioritize some sort of traffic flow in this area, and the 2 bridges are mighty important for any access to and from Old Town. I also think it might even look a little more interesting by having it not being like fully pedestrianized. Or maybe I'm just on Big Oil's payroll. Now, we have utilized quite a few one-way segments throughout Old Town, and plenty of them connect directly to the Avenue of Enlightenment, just like these 2 streets. I'm actually not worried about it. I'm just gonna pedestrianize the avenue and then we'll see if this works out or if I need to actually change anything. Finally, we're not going to utilize the regular pedestrian street because I think this upgrade is just too bulky looking. I'd rather the outermost street, this avenue, being more narrow. So we're gonna utilize the small pedestrian street instead, and making sure we only have snap to existing geometry, we can upgrade or downgrade the central part. Then I'm just going to add a key to the right side and move through. And this already looks better. Yeah, this conversion was a pretty great change, and I can only imagine what it's done to housing costs here in Old Town. Regular cars will sometimes utilize these pedestrian roads if they feel they have no other option, but I think that's okay. It feels fairly realistic. I do imagine that there'd be some sort of law allowing you to actually drive your car here if it's for like business within the area. Like imagine trying to move into this building here and not being able to like bring your furniture up to the like front of the house. Anyways, an additional benefit of having the road surrounding the Old Town being a little more narrow now is that these blocks have a larger like frontage area, so the services basically extend further out. And this is a benefit to me because I'm hoping to do some super quick detailing by just using the paint bucket mod to quickly paint some of these blocks. Now I feel it would be a little too Dutch feeling to just paint it all over with this characteristic Dutch red brick, so we're going to venture into something a little different. I'm very much open to feedback, but I'm tempted to use this natural cobblestone, which has this slightly dark blue tint and a really nice, pretty unique pattern as well. So I'm just going to paint out a few of these blocks and then add a few quick trees so we get that green contrast in there, and have a look at how it all sums up. I just can't catch a break. Hannah, what are you doing? A brand new sports car as well. Anyways, the addition of the linden trees throughout this pedestrianized areas and these new resurfaced blocks really ties the whole thing together. So I think for now I'm sticking with utilizing this surface for many of the regular residential blocks, but of course we'll maintain a bit of variety by making sure that some of the blocks containing special buildings like this one and some of these open squares will have different surface types. There was also a pretty interesting discussion in the comment section, with some of you feeling that the roads surrounding the cathedral were a little too wide and that there is generally just too much like open space surrounding it, while others of you pointed to real-life examples where this is exactly the case. And I think I agree that there's a bit too much open space surrounding the cathedral. It's probably worsened by the fact that we have this pretty large undeveloped square on this side of it, and then directly opposite we have a pretty sizable park. And considering the fact that we already have a couple of other squares and parks already, the actual amount of development here is probably a little too low. So I think a compromise could be to cut this park and this square in half and develop it with more old historic row housing. And then I think visually we can make this ring road around the cathedral seem a little less wide by adding some more grass and trees to it, and probably fully pedestrianize these tram segments. We'll continue making changes and updates to the old town of Zeeburg as the series progresses, but I think this was a very welcome visual change, adding these two new blocks of old row housing. They kind of snug up pretty close to the cathedral, and it certainly feels a lot more dense. I also think the trees help quite a bit with the overall aesthetic. I think now though we're going to just briefly pause the development of Old Town because yeah, in terms of big picture stuff, the lack of local hearse and garbage management services is just getting worse and worse. So let's get some actual city management done. We're gonna kick off with garbage management, and I think the obvious quick location to work with is the industrial Kesselfeld area. We're going to purchase an additional tile here and see if we can squeeze in maybe the Japanese themed recycling center next to this signature building. So let's just grab this one. It's very, very cheap because it's basically just water. Of course, we're going to do a bit of terraforming, so that isn't exactly going to be the case anymore. But I think it's going to be a nice location, and I know the wind direction out here is also very suitable to industrial development. So adding a bit of extra space to play with, we're going to just de-key this segment, if that's a term. Then let's grab garbage management and the Japanese themed recycling center, and I think that's going to be a nice fit. The only thing I'm going to change here is I am going to swap out the surface, because I feel this concrete surface is probably fitting for the Japanese localization, but in our case I just want something that's a little more subdued. So maybe a concrete medium, yeah, that is maybe this one. No, concrete medium is about perfect. And I expect all of these garbage trucks to get out there and get busy right now. It is such a cool detail how they're just moving closely underneath this little entrance and exit segment and getting stuff registered. Maybe there's like a weight thingy here or something. Not really sure, but it is a nice touch. Now, in terms of providing some hearses for the city of Zeeburg, I do plan on building a massive, sprawling cemetery, probably using the new fully modular Dutch-themed cemetery, but I'm not quite ready to locate and get that place down just yet, because it's gonna require a bit of additional terraforming and some new road networks. So for the short term, we're just going to place this crematorium. I was just about to rather lazily place that out here in Kesselfeld as well, but the description mentions a large hall for funeral services. So I think I'm going to place it somewhere a little more central, so that it's also within good reach of most citizens that need to utilize it. So maybe somewhere around this part of town right here. If we get rid of this street, there should be just the space we need. So let's see, we'll make the road layout here a little more interesting then by placing it right here and just kind of wrap the roads around so it looks a little more integrated. Yeah, and they should probably get busy as well, because there's work to be done here. It's now located right next to the elementary school. I'm sure there's instances of this in real life, but that just feels like that's a little too Adam's family for me. So I think I'm going to just change that slightly. I don't know why I'm worried about this. Maybe I shouldn't care. That just kind of seems a little odd. So we're just going to bring this back a little bit. And now we can get rid of this stuff and just move it close to the fire station. There are just so many stunning assets in this game already. Yeah, looking forward to official asset support and to see what the amazing modding community is going to come up with. Judging by the vanilla or official content so far, there's plenty to be excited about. Most of the annoying garbage and hearse notifications are now all but gone. Furthermore, we should dive into a bit of expansion because we have healthy demand almost across the board. We don't have any office demand, but that is due to some pretty prominent vacancies. I mean, even this signature high-rise at 22 Kings Road is empty. But I guess that's to be expected. Our population is rather low. We have only just added university-level educational facilities, and the patch has of course fixed the now notorious office bug where some office buildings would cap out at 5 employees. We're gonna start by adding new jobs to the city within industry and commercial fields, and what better place to start than this newly purchased tile in Kesselfeld that we're currently getting very little use out of. So let's get a bit of land reclamation done as a start. I often see people just mass zoning some quick industry outside of city limits, mainly just to satisfy the demand and get some additional jobs in place. But personally, I really enjoy trying to be more thoughtful about my industry and add a bit of a narrative as I would any other district in my cities. So in this particular case, we've got an area that while visually it looks like a man-made port, it's actually just a general industrial expansion that the city committed to when the industrial base needed to grow. What that means is that much of the industry we'll be placing here didn't spawn here because it was dependent on shipping for importing and export. It was basically just built here because it was a new designated industrial area. I think one way we might be able to reflect this visually is by being very picky with the roads we turn into quays. Because obviously if I was to go into road services and just turn all these outermost roads into quays, it is very much going to look like a purpose-built port. Now in reality we're going to have some quays, mainly this stretch here, but then we'll have other parts where we'll just have this rough terrain, maybe a few boulders to just kind of keep the waves at bay during rough waters, and maybe even adding a few bushes. I think I'm going to create this segment just to kind of showcase what I'm actually thinking about. I think this is a pretty decent representation of something that is clearly man-made, but obviously not a place meant for ships to dock. I am kinda tempted to zone a bunch of this, because much of Kesselfeld is actually zoned, and I think it turned out pretty well. Yeah, it's gonna need maybe one signature building and a bit of surface parking just to kind of break up all the zoning layers, and then we can dive into some zoning. So in terms of signature buildings, I'm actually kind of tempted to utilize the Principe's office building because it is so generic, which is perfect. So I think we might be able to squeeze it in right out here. Can we do 2 even, or is that going to... I'm just gonna try and do 2, see if that causes any pathing issues, and that doesn't seem to be the case. So 24 employees. What? Didn't this building used to have much more than that? Oh well, let's get some parking in place as well. And for just a tiny bit of parking lot customization, now that we did lazy out by using the vanilla parking lots, we might just shift the surface layers of some of them just to make them stand out a little more. We're gonna test if some of the low density commercial, like these Japanese themed lots, fit in within the general area, or whether they just stick out too much. And in that case, we can of course promptly remove them, but I'm just gonna add a few, and then the rest is going to be the clean industrial manufacturing zone from PDX mods. Yeah, I don't know why I added this small mangrove-looking natural feature out here, but it looks interesting. Maybe we can assume that this area used to look the same, so land reclamation was fairly easy by just filling in the gaps between the islands or something. I don't know. Either way, this turned out to be a pretty nice expansion, and even though the steps were really simple and it didn't take a lot of time, it went from being an industrial area that you want to hide far away from your city to an area that actually adds something to it. Also in terms of functionality, of course, I did a quick checkup on Kesselfeld before we built this, and it used to have 800 employees in total, and now that I've expanded the district, we're sitting at almost 1500. Alright, so we still have quite a bit of commercial demand, which is pretty nice because I have an idea for a project in Oldtown which is going to look fairly unique and most importantly solve a big issue I have with the current demographics. And I think you will all find it pretty interesting, but before we get that far, we should really start tapping into some of the massive residential demand. So I think we're going to move out here to, well, I guess this is the outskirts of Alexandria, and create a slightly unique residential development out here. So we're just going to get rid of this, this highway segment, because that was not by any means finalized. And then we're going to do a bit of terraforming because I need a bit more space. The idea behind this development is to have some really tight small square blocks all hosting the very same corner building in the same color scheme. So it's going to look like a really early type of single developer development. Someone who was very rich, wealthy, and decided to purchase a large plot of land as the city was really developing and build his own vision. So let's grab some appropriate roads. I think we're going to go for a narrow single parking, one lane, one way road. Yes. And then I think the blocks need to be 6 deep and 6 zoning tiles wide. That should allow for some of the more nice looking corner buildings to be kind of stacked. So we've got one block in place right here. And then we can add, no, that's just 5. One right here, and we're just gonna move through, of course. All we need to do now is settle on the specific design of this building. So we know it's going to be a 3x3. We know we want a corner lot, and that narrows it down significantly. We probably want something from the German themed pack. I think we're going to try this one. It's nice, it's old, but it's not too unique. So let's see, the color scheme is going to be important. Maybe a red roof tiling on an otherwise completely white building. Yes, I think that might just work. Then we're going to grab this scheme, of course, and just get them all colorized the same color. Now, as I'm looking at this, the scale might just be a little too grand. So what I think we'll do is we're probably going to just do away with a few of these blocks. Let's just zoom out and have a look. Yeah, that looks very, well, special to say the least. So what I think we're going to do is we're going to get rid of these blocks and these two as well, and then we'll just keep this development of the 4. Then we can just get rid of these roads as well, and this is just going to be dedicated to like a more mixed type of housing stock. Well, one thing kind of led to the other, and we now have a much more complete district here. I've named it Karlsbridge. It is named after a bridge that used to cross the strait right here, like an old bridge. Now, this new bridge, which I probably need to redesign in the future because it's pretty ugly and pretty quickly made, is technically called Karlsbridge today, even though it's not within the Karlsbridge district anymore. Another interesting little detail about Karlsbridge is that it is home to the Cat Towers. And yeah, you can probably tell why this 1980s housing estate, which surely has an official name, has been given this unofficial name by the locals. Alright, let's move on to my previously mentioned idea for Old Town. And the issue stems from the demographics of this part of town. We have almost 5,000 residents, but 354 workplaces. And the main reason for this is that much of this is solely residential with very little mixed use. And that's not a choice that I loved to make, it's just how it is when I rely so heavily on the Dutch-themed row housing stock. Now, we have sort of tried to compensate for this issue by stitching in some low-density commercial assets throughout much of the row housing stock, and I think visually it works pretty well, and obviously it has a really nice functional effect as well. And in short, my idea here is basically just to kind of double down on this approach, but I'm thinking that now that we have 2 new low-density commercial zones through the Bridges and Ports DLC, we hopefully have like a larger selection of assets we can kind of stitch into the row housing. Before we get to that though, I want to pedestrianize this part of Old Town much more than it currently is. So we're just gonna start right there. I need to make sure that this segment here, Silverbrook Street as it's called, okay, can make a right and get onto like the main road cutting through Old Town. So I can't pedestrianize all of this, but I can pedestrianize much of the rest here so that we've got this open square with lots of shops facing it and some pedestrianized streets as well with lots of shopping opportunities. There really is some pretty interesting architecture and different types of commercial assets within these zones. So we're just gonna do a bit of like experimentation, try out a few things. It is going to be a very unique look, of course, but I think it's a necessity just to kind of make it look more interesting and kind of bring the like actual inner city shopping vibe to this place as well. So we're just gonna try this out. And gotta remember, we can pretty heavily recolor all of these commercial assets as well. And that is probably going to help a ton in trying to make them look a little more seamlessly integrated to the row housing. But honestly, I think this is just a cool look. It is just awesome seeing all this activity here, and I think most of these commercial assets work pretty well. And you don't need a ton of variety. Like if you grab the 2, 3 or 4 assets that work all right, splicing into these row housing, you can kind of just use them everywhere. Did go for a Chinese restaurant here though from the Dragon Gate pack, and I think that looks really nice. Obviously, this open space deserves just a bit of detailing. I mean, I can't lazy myself out of this one. So what I think we'll do is I'm gonna grab one of the this French-inspired, very red sidewalk surface, and I'll try to make some sort of nice-looking design where it fills up most of the square, but there's going to be like small grassy fields in between. Like kind of like arms kind of sticking through here where we can have some bushes and flowers. It's absolutely impossible to explain, so I should probably just get to it. You gotta stay with me here, guys and girls. Yeah, we've got the grass now. Now all we need are the flower beds as well. I don't think I remember when I last detailed in City Skylines 2 to such an extent. It was a lot of fun, but I felt very rusty. So yeah, there's probably a few odd or awkward choices down here, but I like it, and yeah, it was fun. So we're definitely keeping it, and it's turned into a really nice, desirable little square. And if I just move the camera out like this, Zeeburg is starting to turn into a city. So as we're enjoying this nice view and wrapping up this episode, I just want to thank you guys once again for all the wonderful feedback and all the support in starting this new series. It's just been, it's been very creatively demanding, but it's also just been a ton of fun mixing different styles, and it really helps getting a bunch of nice feedback because it really just tightens up the build and helps add some historical character. So keep it up. If you have something you'd love to see in Zeeburg, feel free to let me know in the comments. I don't get to implement everything, honestly. I actually cherry pick quite a bit, but fortunately there are so many good comments that even with cherry picking, it's easy to find some nice additions. And for a more specific feedback request, I am considering adding some guard towers to each of these like fortification installments. And let's see if I can find the actual one I had selected. Yes, it's this one. So I'm going to attempt adding these to each of these like perimeter fortifications, and I'd love some feedback from you guys on whether you feel this is fitting or if it's out of place. I think it looks kind of cool, but once again, there's like a thing with symmetry here that's maybe slightly overdone, but yeah, let me know. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope to see you all in the next one. Goodbye.